Question: is Operation Epic Fury legal or not? For more than 2 centuries, U.S. presidents have used military force without a formal declaration of war. And they did this not to spite the Constitution, they did this because it's a feature of the Constitution embedded in executive power. Article 2 of the Constitution vests authority of the President as Commander-in-Chief over the armed forces and the conduct of foreign affairs. That authority has consistently been interpreted to include the following powers: to repel attacks, to protect U.S. personnel, defend national interests abroad, and conduct limited military operations. All of this absent of prior congressional authorization. So this is not a theory invented for Operation Epic Fury, it is embedded in precedent. When President Jefferson sent the Marines to go after the Barbary pirates, he didn't wait for some modern framework to dictate how he was going to or authorize him to do so. When President Truman committed forces to Korea underneath a UN framework, he didn't wait for a congressional declaration of war. When President Reagan launched strikes into Libya in 1986, he leveraged his Article 2 authorities to authorize the protection of U.S. personnel and to deter terrorism. When George Bush Sr. launched Operation Just Cause in Panama to take out Noriega, he relied solely on Article 2 authorities. And his justification there was to protect U.S. persons and obligated treaties. Even NATO's intervention into Kosovo, led by Clinton, was a mix of presidential authorities and alliance commitments, no official authorization from any other body. In each case, Congress retained the power to object, whether that was through funding restrictions, legislation, or other political consequences. But the president is allowed to initiate action under Article 2. The War Powers Resolution itself implicitly acknowledges this function. It does not prohibit the president from introducing U.S. forces into hostilities. It simply regulates reporting and establishes a 60 to 90-day reporting framework. If Congress believes the action to be unlawful, it has the constitutional tools to ensure that the president is reined in. It can terminate funding or pass resolutions to end the war or simply refuse to authorize further spending. Now, historically, courts have avoided adjudicating this boundary between Article 1 and Article 2 authorities. It's simply been treated as a political question between two branches of government. Now, critics may argue that Epic Fury exceeds limited defensive action and requires congressional approval, while supporters will argue that Article 2 authority and precedent is enough for the action to be legal. But this question of legality ultimately falls with Congress. They are the ones that ultimately authorize how money is spent and how action of the military is conducted beyond the War Powers Act. So does Congress have to decide? Well, not necessarily. Constitutionally, yes, but in actual practice, sometimes they've just sat it out. Just look at Operation Just Cause. They basically just didn't say anything. And so these operations and these conflicts essentially became constitutional through Congress's acquiescence or tacit approval. And so does that end the debate? Not necessarily. It does reframe it, though. The question is not simply, was there an AUMF? The question is whether Article 2 authority, as practiced, is constitutional or not, and that is really dependent on how Congress perceives it in their actions with regards to the legislation they pass or choose not to pass. And even then, it wouldn't be considered illegal or unconstitutional, but rather it would be a perfect example of the checks and balances embedded within our constitutional framework. And so given the fact that presidents have operated this way and Congress has always had the power to either stop them or approve them, is what is currently happening a feature of the system or a bug? Is it illegal or is it legal? Let me know in the comments. Have a good day.